Good afternoon. This is Bob and Russ. We're with Real Talk on KGGR. If we get lots of calls, I'm just going to give you the number on the front end so you can remember it, 214-624-7002. So, Bob, what kind of questions did we get this week?
You know what? Actually, we got a question that we get from on occasion, but it's kind of starting to become relevant because when people are going to financing, this is a question that comes up all the time, and it's about HOA fees.
All right.
Right? And everybody's like, well, what are HOA fees?
All right. Well, years ago, we didn't have HOAs. HOAs didn't exist. And what happened in neighborhoods where, let's just say, there was landscaping damage or wall.
Well, hold on. So I'm going to define it first,
All right.
It's homeowners association.
All right.
Okay? All right. Go ahead.
So homeowners. So years ago we didn't have HOAs, and then when something happened within the neighborhood, it was never remedied, or the people in their houses would call the city, and the city would come out and say that's not their responsibility, and it would go back and forth, and it wouldn't be remedied. And all of us, whether we rent or whether we own, there's always one homeowner or rent owner that doesn't do or take care or is as respectful with their property as you may be with yours. Well, in a homeowners association, we're trying to balance that because everybody's value, the value of their house, depends on other people that live within the neighborhood. So you don't want a house in the middle of a block of beautiful houses painted purple or orange or green.
Not that there's anything wrong with it.
No, you paint whatever color you want if the HOA approves the color, and that's kind of one of those things. Or you drive down the street and somebody's doing a brake job in their front yard and they're not really capable of doing a brake job, and that night you're having a party. Needless to say, you get the idea. So people call and they ask us about HOAs. So years ago, as the builders started to evolve into building huge neighborhoods, they added HOAs, which took care of some of those items, but also added pools and areas of parks and dog parks where you can go home and stay home without having to leave your home to enjoy the home. You can go to the pool on Sundays, you can have guests over, there's places where you can rent and stay within the neighborhood so that your community, your home, becomes not only the home that you live in, but you also live within the community. And we hear both sides of it. We hear positives and negatives, and usually you hear the negative stories. And the truth of the matter is, isn't that always the way? You always hear the people that are complaining. But if you've come home one day and there's a semi-tractor trailer parked in your front yard, you may have a complaint. So HOAs work both sides of the ledger. If you don't like your HOA or you don't like an HOA, you can certainly become part of the HOA. You just need to give them your name, and then you can get on the board and you can become part of the HOA. Or what Bob and I do when someone is adamantly opposed to an HOA, we just find a neighborhood that doesn't have one, and the problem is solved. That's simple. But then we tell you not to call us when there's a semi-tractor trailer parked in front of your house. So it works both ways, and I hope that answers the question. Homeowners Association.
And it does answer, but let's talk about some positives that the HOAs do provide. Yes, it is a monthly fee, right? And it is part of the loan process. Your lender, and in fact, Rob Stern, who's on at 1 o'clock, you should listen to him.
He's on Fridays.
On Fridays.
Okay.
On KGGR. That's part of the loan process, right? The HOA fees are part of the payment that you make every month. Those HOA fees, they go into making sure that if you've got a brick wall that surrounds the community, that brick wall is maintained over time, because it's not 1 year where the brick wall may come down, but over time it may deteriorate. The HOA is responsible for fixing that. The other thing that HOAs do, I mean, you mentioned parks and open space areas. They maintain all that. They mow the lawns. They cut any shrubbery, or they'll put flowers for beautification, and that maintains the value in the neighborhood, right? when you buy a house, you want to buy a house expecting that your value is going to go up over time, right? The HOA's responsibility is to maintain that neighborhood so that your house value does increase over time. We sold a house to a client that this neighborhood had kind of homes and townhomes.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that they had was a community pool. And in the community pool area, they had, grills and stuff where you could, I know that our client, she wanted, she had kids, so she would have the birthday parties there,
Mm-hmm.
right? Invite all the kids there, you have a pool, you have a place to cook out, and the kids had a great time. So there's a lot of advantages to it too, and it's not always, because you're right, you do always hear about the negatives. And the negatives, I think that there's a lot more positives than the negatives. Now, the other thing is to make sure, just for all of our listeners out there, some people get upset with HOAs, something that the HOA's done or said, and then they stop paying the HOA fees. Not a good idea.
Yeah, not a good idea.
Not a good idea. In the state of Texas, HOAs have a lot of power, and they can take your house. So, pay your HOA fees. If you have a problem with them, get on the board, change it. It's not a big deal.
The other question we get asked about HOAs is, are the fees going to go up? And let me explain. The lending institution, Rob, will explain this to you much better than I can. Rob is on at 1 o'clock on Fridays. HOA is part of a monthly payment, but not part of a house payment. It's separate. It's separate. And we want you to understand that. But Rob needs to know, because it's all about how much your cash flow is at the end of the month. So they just need to know if, in fact, there is an HOA. That would be step one. Step two is, people ask me, well, yeah, but if I'm paying X number of dollars today, is it going to double next month? Well, the answer to that is no. And this is what happens. And if you just look at the math, if it's a neighborhood that you're paying X number of dollars a month in, and the HOA needs a certain monthly, has a budget, but more houses are being built and more people are moving into the neighborhood, no, that doesn't happen. You're not going to wind up with 1 month at one price and the next month another price. Actually, it's usually annual, semi-annual, or quarterly, and way in advance if there's an increase. And if the HOA wants an increase, they have to ask all the members of the HOA if the increase is okay and why they want to make an increase. So you have a lot of voting power in an HOA. You're not just out there and the HOA can do whatever they want. That's just not the way it works. So I know that the only thing you've probably heard is the negatives. But really, when you sit where Bob and I sit on this side of the ledger, there are lots of positives with an HOA. Many, many more positives than negatives. But that's life. In life, there's always positives and things that aren't as positive. In buying a house, you want to protect the value. If I said to you, you're going to pay an HOA, but it's going to protect your value, you go, oh, let's protect the value of the house. And that's really what an HOA is designed to do, clearly. And again, that's why we're Real Talk. We're going to tell you exactly what things are in real estate so that you don't have to listen to all the naysayers and all the negatives. We're just going to tell you exactly the way it is so that you don't have any issues with real estate, any type of real estate.
And to add to that, homeowner associations are nonprofit, so it's not like they can take in all this money and then they go do their own thing with it.
Correct.
Its own homeowner associations are run by the homeowners in the neighborhood, and the board of the homeowners association are people that live in the neighborhood, unless they hire an outside professional company to handle it. But that professional company is still at the direction of the homeowners themselves. So I just wanted to make sure that people understand what a homeowners association is really supposed to do and how they're supposed to operate and what that money is supposed to go to. Sometimes the homeowners associations, especially in some of these condo communities, they handle all the trash, right? The pickup, They handle
yard maintenance.
Yard maintenance. They handle some of the, and especially in some of the, as people are starting to retire and they get into these retirement communities, the homeowner association manages all of the mowing and just all the outside part of it, which brings us into another question, by the way. I got a call from a lady, and she said, "Look, we are getting ready to retire. We have owned our home for 21 years. We want to downsize, and what are the steps that we should take to downsize?" Right?
And that's a great question, because there are steps for both parties, quite frankly, the sellers, which help the buyers, and our responsibility in this particular case would be to the sellers. We would be responsible to the sellers since they asked us what to do. So the first step would be Bob or I, or one of our team members, we would go out and do a seller's consultation. And what a seller's consultation is we visit the house, of course, and we look at those things that may need to be updated, repaired, painted, fixed, because we know it's coming. So rather than lose value on the sale of your house, we want to be sure we get the maximum value, because our responsibility is you, the seller, and the responsibility we have there is to make sure that we maximize your profit. Maximize, very clear. But there are little tiny things that you can do to get the house ready, and that would be in a seller's consultation. That would be the first thing. And then we would establish what today's value is on your house. What is the value of your house in the market today? Do you want to do any updating? Do we want to do any repairs? How much equity, money, profit do you need to take, or do you want to take from this house to move forward? And we're very real about this, because it's real estate, and we want to price the house properly so it'll sell at the time frame you need it to sell, and then we list the house with multiple sources, of course, Facebook, YouTube, all that social media goes into effect, and we take our entire marketing department, we do all the pictures, we do everything. From beginning to end, we do everything, and we follow the process all the way through, from the time we get the offer till the time we negotiate the offer in your behalf, so that you know what your net profits are, and then of course we go to closing, and so on and so forth. The sale of a house in Texas is not difficult. You may hear that it is, or it's not. Listen, I couldn't do anything for 45 plus 49 years and make it difficult. It's not difficult. And it's very exciting, quite frankly, because you're going to move to the next chapter of your life. And you need to know what your profit is, your equity, your cash flow, whatever we want to call it. You need to know how much money you're going to have to move to the next level of your life. And Bob's and my responsibility is to maximize that. That's the way this works. There's some special opportunities for people that are over 62. Mm-hmm. Then let's talk about that, because there are some people that they want to downsize, but they're starting to retire. They don't want any more payments. Okay.
There's a program that
Absolutely
manages that. So let's talk a little bit about that.
All right, so downsizing in our verbiage would be taking the house, a 3,000 square foot house that you've lived in to raise the family, and now you don't need 3,000 square feet anymore because your kids have graduated from school and they're out on their own and they're all successful, and now it's just you, and you need to move on with the family you began with at the beginning. And you don't need 3,000 square feet anymore. As Bob and I talked in other segments, 3,000 square feet, I mean, you could find a 2,500 brand new house today that feels like 3,000 square feet. It's a little different in the technology, but you just don't need 3,000 square feet anymore. The kids' bedrooms are not bedrooms anymore. They're where you put your hot tub. No, that's only an ad I see on TV. It's just different. You've made one an office, you've made one a workout room, and now you just don't need that kind of space. So you don't want to heat and cool 3,000 square feet anymore. You want to drop down to 25, 22, 2,300. And a lot of people that Bob and I work with, when we go out looking, and they've had their house for 20 plus years, and now they're looking at downsizing, they find 1,000 square feet less feels like it's bigger than the 3,000 square foot house they were in. So there's a lot of different moving parts here. Plus, a lot of different areas, and this is unknown to the public, and I don't know why, but we only get older once. So it's unknown that certain areas that you move into, once you hit 62, 65, and you start changing your homestead exemptions, you don't have to pay all the taxes anymore. So moving from a 3,000 square foot house in a neighborhood where you do pay taxes into a house that's not as big but feels as big, into a neighborhood where you don't have to pay school taxes anymore because you've already paid them, is really a benefit. And people don't realize the monetary benefit it is to do that. In addition, and what Bob mentioned is very important, and Rob can help us with this, that's Rob Stern. He's on the same station, KGGR, 1:30 on Friday. There's different, at 1 o'clock, thank you. There's different kinds of loans you can take out where you can take some of the equity out of your house without selling the house. There's so many different moving parts to real estate in Texas that you need to either call us or you need to call Rob. You know Rob's number. Our number is 214-624-7002, and we will explain to you in the seller's consultation the many different options that you're going to have to make the transition easy and beneficial to you, because really, our goal, easy and beneficial to you.
And you can hit us up on Facebook at the Right Realty Team, Instagram on the Right Realty Team, or YouTube at Right Realty Team DFW. That's there's other options that sellers can do. Like some sellers don't want to sell the house, right? So they can rent out the house,
Mm-hmm.
take the rental income, go get an RV, travel the country, right, until they're ready to buy a house again. And then when they're ready to do that, they come back and they sell the house and then go move into whatever it is that they're looking to move into.
That's something Bob and I seldom talk about because it's just not a subject that comes up a lot. We deal with a lot of first-time buyers, and yet we have a lot of first-time sellers. So what Bob just alluded to, and it's extremely important, let's just say your house is paid for. It's paid for. And you don't know what to do. You have Social Security, you have other retirement opportunities, and now you want to supplement that income. Well, you can supplement that income by renting out your house. Well, I don't want to do that because I don't want to maintain it. Well, Bob and Russ, Real Talk, real estate, property management, we do everything. And part of that would be in the consultation. If you decided to rent it but don't want to maintain a thing, you want to be sure that the people that you put in the house maintain the house. You want to be sure they can pass credit checks, police check, whatever checks you want. We run the gamut of making sure as we can, that the people that we put in your house are people that you would want in your house. And then, adding to Social Security and other opportunities that you have in retirement, you can now add rental income. And since a rent house is a business, if anything happens to the rent house, tax-wise, it's actually a benefit to get it fixed. There are so many opportunities in real estate. And what I tell people is, nowhere in school did we go to where it says buy a house 101 or sell a house 101 or rent a house 101. Nobody took those classes. And even if there were classes, they change on a yearly basis. So you need to get in touch with Bob and I and let us go through this consultation with you so that we can explain or at least give you the options that will benefit you. Because if it benefits you, it benefits us.
Yeah, so give us a call at 214-624-7002. Hit us up on Facebook at the Right Realty Team, on Instagram at the Right Realty Team, or go to our YouTube channel at Right Realty Team DFW. And then we also would say listen to Rob Stern. He's on at 1 o'clock at KGGR on Fridays, and that guy's got a wealth of information on what you should do, on what to do with your asset, right? I mean, what to do with your house. Should I rent it? Should I sell it? Should I refinance it? Whatever. Give him a call on that.
And since we mentioned Rob, I have to tell you, the last client, they just moved in. Never dreamed they would have a house before. It's one of those exciting opportunities where you see people on the doorstep totally overwhelmed with emotion because they're moving from a situation into a new home, which betters their situation. But it was a veteran, VA, who had, because of certain situations that happened to all of us, but in this particular case, because he was overseas a lot, they were overseas a lot, there were a lot of credit issues, so they were very concerned. They never dreamed they could own a house. They couldn't get out of their credit issues. And because of that, their credit scores were not where they needed to be, where most people think they need to be, quite frankly, where the world thinks they need to be for a veteran to own a house. And what Bob just said is incredibly important for you veterans that have had a little bit of a glitch. You need to call Rob Stern. You have to get in touch with Rob Stern. Listen to his program on this station at 1:30 on Fridays, and you will be amazed. If I can't and won't, if I told you the credit scores of this family, they never dreamed that they could ever own a home. And Rob works with veterans. It's unbelievable to me because, again, most of you know that I've done this for a very long time, and Rob produces miracles. For veterans, Rob produces miracles. And if it's a miracle that you need, then please listen to Rob Stern's Rob Stern at 1:30 on Fridays.
So I'm going to shift gears a little bit. Let's, because this is the ongoing conversation on every time somebody walks in. Well, I need to wait for the interest rates to drop or something like that. Let's talk about interest rates, Russ. I mean, interest rates, everybody wants to wait for the perfect time. And what everybody's going to tell you is nobody knows the future, right? So don't try and time the market.
Yeah.
Get into what you can get into, and as the interest rates change, you'll adjust to that. So let's talk a little bit about interest rates. I'll give that to you because I know you're chomping at the bit to talk.
Well, I am chomping at the bit because I hear that every day. We look at 5 or 6 houses and whoa, wait for the rates to come down. And I say, so this is what I tell people. And it seems to have been valuable for over the last many years. Many years. Interest rates have a value because that's how we get a loan. But any interest rate you get is, the interest is 100% tax deductible. I don't care if it's 3.5 or 6.5, whatever the rate is 100% tax deductible. So let's remember that. And it's not easy to remember because you've been renting and you've never had any tax deductions. Well, welcome to owning a house because that's the biggest one, not to mention the enjoyment of your house and your family. But in addition to that, now you get some tax deductions you never dreamed of getting. And we talk about that when we talk to people about owning a house. So let's talk about interest rates. First of all, I'm a seller. And here I am, Mr. Seller, and I'm selling my house for $300,000. And I open the paper, I Google up the news, and I see that interest rates have come down. And the first thing I do as a seller is I know more people are going to be trying to buy my house. I just know that. Because if the rates come down, you think now's the time to buy a house. And guess what? The seller knows you think that. So the seller is going to call their agent and say, hey, that $300,000 house, let's raise the price of that in MLS, multiple listing service, to $310,000. And why is that? Because they don't realize, because you're getting a lower rate, that it went up $10,000. And that keeps the payment the same. So you overpaid for the house because you got a lower interest rate. And that's what's going to happen. And years ago, when the rates were 3 and 3.5%, people paid $100,000 more for their house because they got a 3% interest rate. And now, the house value, they're waiting for the house value to go up $100,000, even though they have the lower interest rate. Was their payment different? No, because if you paid $100,000 more, your loan amount was $100,000 more, so the lower interest rate did nothing for you. Now let's look at the other side of the ledger. You buy the house today, at whatever the rate is. You can qualify for it. Rob Stern has qualified you for it. The payment works. Everything works. But you bought the house at the lowest possible price, today's price. All right? So now let's go 4 years down the line, and the rates tumble. 3 years down the line, and the rates tumble. Number one, you can refinance, but you bought the house at the lowest rate, so you have the most amount of profit. And that's the trick. The trick is to buy the house when you can qualify for it, because you can always refinance. What we say in the industry is, buy the house, rent the interest rate, because you can adjust everything. It's a simple adjustment. FHA and VA specifically has a program called streamlining. It's a program very few people talk about. Rob would talk about it. What streamlining is if you go down the line and the rates drop, FHA, as long as you've made your payments on time, even if you've changed jobs, even if your credit has gone in the dumper, the FHA and VA will refinance the house for you under the Streamline program. So, as long as you bought the house at the right price and didn't overpay for it at the lower interest rate, you're in a great position. A great position.
Well, listen, this has been great. We're going to wind this up. Hit us up on Facebook, Right Realty Team, at The Right Realty Team. Hit us up on our YouTube channel. Go take a look at some of the videos there, Right Realty Team DFW. Give us a call, 214-624-7002. If you're the first step in any of this process is you give us a call and we'll get you in touch with a lender. Rob's one of the lenders. We'll get you in touch with a lender and we'll find out exactly where you need to be, right?
Okay.
All right. So give us a call. Hit us up on Facebook or YouTube. Thanks for joining us today at Real Talk with Right Realty Team. I'm Bob.
I'm Russ.
Thank you.
Thank you.